Welcome to Confidently Visible, the podcast that helps you move through visibility blocks, including fear, resistance, and overwhelm to share life-changing work with the world and grow your business and attract more beautifully aligned clients that rave about your work. I'm your host, Beck Sands, a visibility mentor, a certified life coach, and an award-winning PR consultant based in sunny Newcastle, Australia. Let me guide you on how to show up as your unique self, to share your incredible work, and to grow your audience with more consistency, ease, and flow. Whether you are a consultant, an entrepreneur, a CEO, a coach, or a creative, this is the space to unlock your uniqueness, to grow your audience, and to make a bigger impact, all while feeling good about being seen. The world needs to hear your message. So let's get started. I am interrupting this podcast episode to share that we have started a waitlist for our upcoming Confidently Visible speakers training sessions that we'll be hosting in Newcastle. Now, at these sessions, we are going to support you to become confidently visible and to hone and refine your presentation style so that you can become the absolute best speaker that you can be and have so much more fun increasing your visibility and building your personal brand, whether you're in a career or business, and growing your profile to attract more beautifully aligned clients and opportunities. So in the speakers training, we will be helping you to increase your visibility to grow a thriving career or business, show potential clients and employers how good you are at speaking, to share your personal brand and expertise through effective presentation, and to support your journey to become a thought leader in your field. If you would like to find out more about when the next speakers training will be held, make sure that you jump on over to becksands.com/speaker training. That's becksands.com/speaker training to jump on the waitlist, and we'll share more details with you then. Now let's get back to the episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Confidently Visible podcast. It is so good to be here with you today. The sun is shining here in Newcastle, which is saying a lot because it has been raining torrentially for the past month or so. So pretty happy here on this beautiful wintry day to be with you. So today I'm going to be chatting with you about a day in the life as a coach and consultant, and specifically a day in my life as a coach and consultant. And I want to sort of talk a little bit about the concept of a freedom-based lifestyle. And I want to demystify a few things about that and just share also how I set my days up for success and also my weeks for success, so that I can get as much productive work done in as little time as possible, whilst also managing some of the ebbs and flows of having your own business, including, how I set myself up to be disciplined to continue and push forward with my work, even when things feel tricky. So let's dive into this topic. I really hope this supports you. And I know that I'm always really curious to hear about how other people set up their day-to-day lives, because it's one thing to share, life is so great with this business and, I've got a freedom-based lifestyle and a freedom-based business and this and that. But of course, that means different things to different people, as well as it doesn't necessarily mean that there is no work to do, if that makes sense. So there is still 100% a lot of work to do. So I want to just share this with you today so that firstly you can see what's possible for you in your business, particularly if you're listening to this and maybe you're still in corporate, you haven't actually stepped out into your own business, or maybe you've just started your own business and you're wondering what's possible for you. Maybe you're established in business and you're going through a bit of an iteration and a change and you're thinking, how do I make this feel more aligned? Like maybe you're super busy in your business and you're wondering how you can start to either slow things down a little bit or work on different things that might feel a little bit more aligned for you. So just know that I've been in business for 6 years as of May. So as of last month, I'm recording this in June, and it has gone through so many iterations and phases. And still to this day, I will have periods where I'm feeling really, really busy. It's just that I know how to not burn out now. I know the feelings of when burnout is approaching, and I know how to manage my energy on a day-to-day basis, because it's not about having one holiday a year. It's not about, just like pushing and pushing and pushing for weeks during a busy period and then being so exhausted that you feel sick at the end of it, and you're in bed for a week. Like I've definitely been there and I've done that, but it's not the way that I approach my life and my business now. And this, for me, this freedom and flexibility to be able to manage that and manage my own energy and my own output, that is freedom. That's what having a freedom-based business is about. It's about, knowing that I can do some things in my business that will push me, and that I know I will feel exhausted at the end, but then to know that on the other side of that, I will be able to, sleep in for 3 days and get support and outsource some things or push some things to the following week, so that for me is freedom. And also just being able to know that I'm in charge of it. Like if I want to push something out, I will. If I want to delegate something, I will. If I want to change tack entirely and change up my business entirely, and let go of an offering or change an offering or move and shift an offering, I will. And this, my friend, that is freedom. Freedom doesn't mean just doing no work. It doesn't mean getting up and okay, I've got nothing to do today, I'm going to go lie on the beach or something like that. I know that can be the visual that some of us have of the freedom-based lifestyle, the freedom-based entrepreneur, but it's not that. I don't want to go and sit on the beach all day. Sometimes I do, if I'm on holiday, sure, or sit by the pool or whatever. But that's not day-to-day life. I want to fulfill my potential. I want to be doing work of significance in the world. I want to be supporting others. I want to be generating wealth and prosperity for myself and my family, and to help others do the same. I want to be doing good work in the world. I want to be productive every day, and I think it's the balance of these desires against being able to show up in a way that will serve you, that will be of service for you in your life, so that it's not sucking the life out of you through burnout, if that makes sense. So it's a real balance to be had. And I feel like this is a balance that is constantly in work. I had a few weeks ago where I felt like I was approaching burnout. I was like, I'm so exhausted right now. I need to have a bit of time off. And I still had commitments that week that I needed to meet. And so I really was like, oh, no, this isn't good. I need to take a rest. I know this feeling. But then after those commitments were met, I was able to take a rest and then I was fine. So sometimes we do have commitments that we still do need to keep, even if it is pushing our boundaries a little bit. But it's about being able to be fluid as much as possible over time so that, yes, you might have to show up one week and stretch yourself a little bit too thin one week, but then you can bring it back and you've got the choice and the freedom to be able to do that. And that, for me, that's what having a freedom-based business is all about. So let's dive into a little bit of a day in the life. And I'm talking here about a work day. So I'm not talking about, a day where I'm on holiday and sipping a cocktail on the beach, which I do love to do, but, that's not a work day. So let's just talk about a work day and a bit of a work week as well, so that you can get an idea. Because I know that, no matter what stage you're at, if you're in corporate still and you're thinking, what does that even look like? I know I did. I had absolutely zero idea of what it would look like being in my own business. And of course, it's different for everyone. Like, everyone sets their business up in a different way. But I've really set my business up in a way that I feel like really supports me right now and supports my creativity. It supports me to be able to get some big things done that I want to do in my life. And it supports me to have the lifestyle that I want and to be able to manage that burnout while also still kicking big goals and doing some really good things. And of course, there's still stuff, like there's always, a way to grow. Like, I'm not saying I'm doing everything perfectly in any way, shape, or form. Just saying that this is a way that feels really, really good for me right now, and that hopefully you can see what's possible for you too. So my days are generally set up now so that I wake up between 6:30 and probably 8:30, depending if I've had a huge day the day before, or if I've flown somewhere, or if I've had an event or something like that. Then I will definitely sleep in if I can until like 8:30. But if it's just a normal day, then I'll probably get up around 6:30, sometimes in winter 7. I will do my meditation sitting up in bed. Always do like a 10-minute meditation, which helps me to just have that kind of calm start to the day. I listen to guided meditations on Insight Timer, and I love doing that because, even though, yes, it's great to just do like a breathing meditation and you can do that, I actually find like it just keeps me a little bit more committed because you go, okay, I've got to do it every day. And the app kind of goes, yes, you've got, a 100-day track or whatever it is, and you don't want to lose that. So you're just a little bit more motivated to do it. And I like having the variety as well. So I'll start my day with that 10-minute meditation, and then I'll jump out of bed and I will go for a walk along the beach. And that's such a nice way for me to start the day at the moment. So we live in Newcastle, in Merewether, just near the beach. It's really lovely. And I just love starting my day in that way because I've had a lot of burnout in the past. I have had, women's health issues. I've had anxiety from those women's health issues. And so that feels just like a really nice way to regulate my nervous system first thing in the morning. And I don't start my day anymore. I used to, but I don't start my day anymore with like a big workout, like a big CrossFit workout or anything like that. I just want to start the day on a chill vibe. So that's how I do it. And maybe, it'll look different for everyone, but I definitely recommend, particularly if you've had some burnout in the past, or any kind of nervous system dysregulation, that you do start the day in any way you can on a chilled vibe. And maybe that will just look like sitting on your own with a cup of tea for half an hour before the rest of the house wakes up. It doesn't necessarily need to look like a walk. That for me just feels really like I'm living a life of freedom. That's like my ideal life, is just going for a walk by the beach in the morning. Very, very simple. Okay. And then I will come back. I will, make coffee, make a smoothie, chat with my husband, who's also working from home now. We've got separate offices. It's really cool. And, feed my kitties, Moxie and Ollie. And then I will get ready and come up to my office and get into my work at like 9:30. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later, like I said, depending on what I've got on. But generally speaking, that's an average day. And then the first thing I try and do is some deep creative work. So that has looked like finishing my book. It has looked like, doing some not client work. I mean, work for my business, work for my goals, to move myself forward. The work that, if not done first thing in the morning, probably won't get done. It's also my priority. It's my priority in my business. It's my priority for my life. It's my priority for my creativity. And so I like to work on that first. Yeah, and I will have checked email just over breakfast to make sure nothing earth-shattering has happened. And then I'll sit down at my desk and do that creative work for at least an hour, if not 2. And that is really enough when focused to get a huge chunk of work done. So how I focus is I will put my headphones in and listen to ambient sounds or a playlist just with music that doesn't have any voices or like words, sorry. So that is the key to focused work for me anyway, is really having that like ambient noise or binaural beats, or just that really focused piano music or whatever it is that doesn't have any words in it, which can be distracting. So I'll put my headphones in and set a timer. And my timer is it'll just go up. So it's not like I used to set a 25-minute like timer with the Pomodoro technique type style, but now I just put on like the timer on my phone just to see how long I've been going. And I'll aim to sit for like an hour, take a little break, and then another hour, depending. If I'm feeling like I'm really resisting that day, then I will just aim to sit for 25 minutes and get something done. But normally by the time I've sat for 25 minutes, I feel like I'm in a good place and I can keep going. Okay. So I always recommend to eat the frog first, which just means do the hard task first so that you're not procrastinating on it all day, which can really increase stress levels. So whatever that kind of like hard task looks like for me that day, that's what I'm going to do next. So it might look like, writing some media materials for a client, or whatever that focused creative work is that I'm doing for a client. I will do that next. And that will take me through till about lunchtime. And I might have some more creative work to do after that, but at least that day I've hopefully gotten a really good head start and done all the deepest focused work that I need to do, so that then I'm free in the afternoons to do other stuff that will move my business forward. So things like client meetings, things like podcast interviews, things like doing coaching sessions with clients, anything meeting, anything that I need to engage with other people, or that's not focused work, I try and push that to the afternoon because I know that I'm not as likely to sit and do focused work at that time. And also I know it's going to take me longer. All right, so that is how I generally set up my work days. And like I said, I work from home now. I did used to have a co-working space when I wanted to get myself out of the home office. And I found myself just preferring to work from home, but a co-working space can be really good, even just for a day or two a week, if you do have other distractions around the house. So yeah, that can be really good as well. So just figure out what works for you, but also what works for you in this time in your life. So if you're working from home and wanting to grow your business and you're really struggling to be productive because there's so many different things you can do and you're not 100% sure what you want to do, then it can be a really good way to get out of your, home environment and go work in a co-working space to give yourself a fresh perspective. And also just giving yourself a little bit of hard deadlines as to how you work, not to stress you out, but just to give you some boundaries. So I still like to do a normal work day, mainly because of the fact that it gives me structure and routine in my life. And we know that humans thrive on structure and routine. It doesn't mean that I stick to the same routine every single day. I do figure out what works for me, but it does mean that I do have a little bit of a structure that I know that works for me. That means I can be my most productive self while also enjoying it the most for myself, but also sitting at my desk for as little amount of time as possible, because tasks can expand to fit the time that we have. And so if we can just give it like a little deadline, sometimes that can just be a nice motivator, a nice little prompt for you to get stuff done. So an example of this is, I will schedule in things like creating 4 podcast episodes, and I'll schedule in, so creating the ideas for those. I might put like half an hour or an hour in the diary to do that. And then I'll put in a whole afternoon to batch record 4 episodes. That makes such a good use of my time, because it means that I'm not trying to spend a whole morning every week recording an episode, which it can take. By the time you set up, you get the audio, you get yourself organized, it can take some time. So that's where I find that once you're in the headspace, once you're set up, do as many as you can. I just did a beautiful podcast interview she interviewed me with the beautiful Julie Parker, which was so lovely. I loved our chat so much. I think the episode's going to be out in a couple of months on the Inspired Coach podcast, but it was just such a beautiful conversation, and I can't wait for that to be out. But I was like, yep, cool. Like, I'm in that mind frame. I'm going to then record a bunch of podcast episodes that afternoon in advance so that I can maximize the use of that time. And also I know, like, I've got myself set up, like I've, got my hair all done and like not properly done, but it's not up in a messy bun, and I'm not just wearing my activewear. So I'm like, that's a really good opportunity to seize that time for yourself and to maximize the use of that by batching that content. So batching works for me sometimes. It doesn't always work for me, just because I do have multiple layers in my business and there is a lot going on. So I can't always, for example, commit to batching content on a Monday afternoon, because I might have something come up. I've got a combined coaching and consulting business, and I might have something come up for a consulting client that needs to be done or that needs to be briefed. So this is where my week does change week to week. I also, I do a lot of events. I do a fair bit of travel for work to see clients, to go to events, interstate. I do, new offerings, which sometimes are in person. I have a business group, which we meet up in Sydney every month. And so I do travel down to Sydney quite a bit for client meetings and also for my business group meetings. So you can see I love that variety though. Like, I want to not be at my desk all day, every day. But this might look different for you. So, when do you work best? And sometimes, depending on what phase of life you're in, maybe you've got small children, for example, and you want to work at night, and that works for you. Whatever looks like it works for you in that season and feels really good for you in that season. It's so nice to be able to set yourself up in that way and have the freedom to be able to do that. Okay, so that's what my days generally look like. And then I will usually finish work and wrap up by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Because I love to go and do Pilates at the end of the day, which helps just to release any stress and tension. It's a healthy way to do that rather than having like a glass of wine at the end of the day, which I've definitely been in a place where I do that. And that's not the best habit for me to get into. And so I love to go to Pilates in the afternoon. And then that just makes me feel like it's a nice way to give myself a deadline to get away from the desk as well as to get some exercise, which is why I don't do Pilates in the morning, which I also love to do. But it just helps to regulate those emotions, to get the stress out of my body. And it gives me also a really clear time that I need to shut down the computer and leave the desk. And then by the time I come home, it's like, cool, it's time to make dinner and do the evening routine. So that is pretty much my day-to-day life as a coach and a consultant. Of course, I will have various different things, like I said, every week, depending on if I've got travel, or I might have different interviews and things like that I need to prepare for. But generally speaking, it's the creative work in the morning and the focus work in the morning, and then the client meetings, client sessions, interviews, videos, video calls, all of that kind of thing in the afternoons. And then end by 4. And that just gives me a really beautiful structure and way that I can set up my days to really succeed, and so that I'm not working all the hours. Like I said, if you're, in that phase of life where you're wanting to work in the evenings because you've got small kids or something like that, for example, then what does a day look like for you, and how can you kind of set yourself up for success? Because there's no rules. Like when you've got your own business, it's your choice, and you've got that freedom to be able to set your life up to avoid burnout, to manage your energy. So what I was saying before about managing energy, like a few weeks ago, I had, a lot going on, and we hosted our very first speakers training here in Newcastle. And it was there was a lot happening at that time in my business. I was finishing my book, my first book. And I was like, okay, I definitely need to have a bit of a rest. So the last couple of weeks, I've actually just taken more time off. I've taken days off. I've taken half days off. I've slept in a lot more, those 8:30 sleep-ins, like I was saying. Sometimes that is just a crucial way to avoid burnout. So I could just force myself to keep going and press on. But I know that otherwise I'm going to be sick in bed for like a week and, I'll get a head cold or something else. And I know that that's coming, right? So like I said, there's times to push ahead, and then there's times when it's really key to be able to pull back and manage your state. So, have a think about what that can look like for you. Obviously, we are coming up to, I'm not sure exactly what date this is going to be released yet, but, we are around the time of the end of the financial year in Australia, which I know can be so stressy for small business owners. It can be stressy with client work as well, because everyone's wrapping things up, or you might have end of financial year offers going out. It does feel like a little bit of a scramble sometimes at the end of the financial year. And so, maybe think about some ways that you can manage your energy around that. And also just put in place systems and processes so that if it is quite stressful this year, that next year you can start to implement things and processes and systems that it won't be as stressy next year. So for example, if you're scrambling with your tax paperwork and all of that kind of thing, maybe you can get some processes in place for next year so that you're not in such a scramble, if that makes sense. So you can have your taxes done. I know I have meetings set up with my accountant, often quarterly, just to look at how things are tracking, looking at quarterly BAS, looking at, the tax payments and what we're sitting at in terms of revenue and everything like that, and how we can manage the BAS, the quarterly BAS, and the tax situation on an ongoing basis to the best of our ability. So I will know exactly what's coming within reason. Obviously you can't forecast exactly, but I will know. I'll have that prediction and I'll know those numbers well in advance so I can prepare as much as possible. So I'm not scrambling at the end of the financial year with taxes and I know what's coming, right? So if it is a bit stressy for you this year, how can you start to implement changes for next year? And it's the same with your working days. So if things are feeling really stressy for you right now with your working days, then how can you start to implement changes, even slowly, that will free you up a little bit and help you to manage your energy, your emotional state, your mindset, which is all key when you're running your own business, whether you're a coach or a consultant in your own business. It's 100% key to be able to manage your energy and know how you operate personally and how you work and how you can be your most productive and creative and joyful and positive self so that you can be of service to your clients, so that you can attract and retain beautiful clients, and so that you can just enjoy your life and just feel really good in your business. So it's all a learning curve, and there's no one cookie cutter approach for everyone. So that's generally what works for me right now. But have a think about like what your non-negotiables are right now. Like who else are you supporting? Where else can you get support in your life right now? And so maybe it's sitting down for a little planning session. And I would recommend, just, if you're driving or walking right now, you can come back and listen to this again and at a time that you're not driving or walking, so that you can just sit down and start to journal some of these things. So have a journal, like what am I, like how am I feeling right now about my work days and how my work life is set up? So how am I feeling right now? What needs to change? What needs to change so that I can feel much more aligned? Who do I need to get support from? So, whether that's existing support in your life. So is it a husband, your kids, like your sister, whatever, some friends, like who can you get a little bit more support from so that you can free up some time and energy to do the things that light you up a little bit more in your life and your business? Is it team members? Can you bring on a team member to take some of the workload from you? Can you let go of some lower paying clients that don't feel so aligned anymore? Have a think about what you can do to change things to feel better. Maybe it can look like as well telling your clients that you don't work on a Monday, or a Friday, or just making that commitment so that you've either got that day for self-care or for whatever else you want to do in your life, or you can just catch up on your own business stuff, like the admin, the finances, clear the email, do some planning, whatever it is that you need in your business. So how can you start to set up your weeks in a way that just feels so much more free and aligned for you right now? And what's your next step going to be? What's that one next thing that you're going to do right after you listen to this episode or right after you consider these questions? But what's one thing that you can start to change this week just to start to feel a little bit more aligned and more joyful and more creative and free in your business? Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I have absolutely loved bringing it to you, and I really hope that you got a lot out of it. Please share and rate and review if you do enjoy this episode. I'd be so grateful so we can get this into the ears of more listeners who might need it right now. So I really hope that this has given you some more permission to do business your way, as well as just demystifying a little bit of what a freedom-based business looks like, and that you can set up your business in a way that really serves and supports you. So thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to Confidently Visible. I hope today's conversation inspired you to show up boldly, to share your unique gifts with courage, and to move through the visibility blocks that are holding you back. If you loved this episode, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this. And if you're ready to become confidently visible in your business, head over to becksands.com to join my email list and to connect on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Until next time, keep showing up as the amazing, unique you that the world needs.